One.
Okay, I tried to pick up the pace here. So um, these two just take the slider value and set it to they reset state. And I use something weird. I use the idea of the slider um, array zero value as a number. I don't know why I ended up using that, but I found it in the console and I went with it and it worked. Um, I'm actually taking the value of the slider output, which is this number right here, not the actual slider. These are some components from the foundation CSS, and they have their own JavaScript setups and everything like that. But I integrated them in, and that's where I get that from. Um, these are the buttons. These are the methods for the buttons. They just reset the state to. They change the state of the columns and the rows. So when it regenerates the grid, um, there's going to be a different amount of columns and rows, and then it's a responsive table. So when you click it, it like automatically adjusts the size of the cell. It's really pretty cool. But I use that's why there's a delay. I put a set timeout in there because for some reason um, it takes a minute for the state to change. Um, so I don't call that reset. I have to wait a second to call that reset because if I call that reset, it'll actually reset before the new state is in there, and that reset just calls the grid again, um, and it'll actually spit out the old state without the set timeout. So I don't know. Maybe other people have had issues with having to wait. I don't know if it's because set state is async or whatever. So like set state will start, but it takes a little longer for set state to happen. And basically, if we don't put the set timeout in and call this dot reset right after reset state, the state won't actually be set yet. If that makes any sense. So that's hence the set timeout to solve that, but it works, so I go with it. All right, so yeah, save board. It just takes whatever the board is. You can user configures the board, and then it puts it. Oh, okay. It sets the state of save board to this dot board, and save board was just initiated as an empty array. So it just puts whatever the board state is in an array, and print sets the actual board to that. So that's a nifty way of using JavaScript to um, save data based on it only works for the session, but it's not like someone wants to save this permanently, just for screwing around purposes, basically. So then, um, here's our component. Here's our JSX. Reveal is the help modal, and here's our table. Um, that when you click on it, I just give the on click to the parent, and when you click on a cell, it bubbles up, and boom, you get your new cell. And the inside of the table is, we just call make board on this.state.board, and it creates our new board. Uh, and then these are just passing down. I'm passing down props to the children, and the props, for the most part, are just the individual methods that we just went over. and those go down to the two different control panels on either side. Let's see. Okay, these are for the two color changers. I've got those just as event listeners overall. In general, the colors don't run through React. They just run through regular JavaScript. And that's pretty much it. I mean, other than this is the modal. I had a little trouble with this. Um, so with foundation stuff, you have to initiate with the new foundation. You have to use the constructor with some options. It's right now, as of right now, it's not actually working with the animations. It's just doing a fade in animation for some reason. I'm not quite sure. I haven't quite figured that out. It's worked before for me um, using foundation like this and component did mount, but for some reason with this, it's not. I don't know why. Um, and then I had to actually, yeah, I had to put my own um, close modal method in because the modal wasn't working out of the box. I had to do, even though they've got these data close things, they don't work they don't work for some reason when in React. Then the control panels, where I just pass the parent methods as props and call them on click. A neat thing is changing from on click to on move for the toggle function. So instead of having to click cells or on mouse over, so you just go like this and you get new cells. That's an interesting thing I was messing around with, but in the long run, I just went with on click. Um, and these are where, yeah, I have to instantiate the sliders, and those all work fine. Although all these options get passed into the slider just fine. For some reason, the reveal modal, I don't know why exactly. I don't know if I've got something wrong in here that I'm not seeing. Um, I don't know exactly what is up with animation, and I don't know exactly what's going on. But that's the basics of the code for this. It's probably the most advanced um, stuff I've done so far. Um, Definitely, React is really cool. Definitely, really had a good time making this application, especially these these functions that all kind of chain together and feed, like the output of one function kind of feeds into the other function, like the God function and the make grid function and stuff. A lot of fun. But anyway, these are going to be posted on my README in my GitHub. So if you come across these videos on YouTube, you can link into my. I'll put a link to my GitHub repo, so you can come in and look at some of the source code for this. If you happen to be doing this project in FreeCodeCamp, and that's the one thing about this project. I just looked at, like, some other person posted up their game of life, and the way they used the Canvas API to make the board and everything, so they went about it completely different. Like, there's definitely more than one way to go about making the game of life. For each game of life uh, program out there, there's going to be a different way of going about doing everything in it. So that's one of the really cool things about this. But if you get stuck on it, you can definitely look at these videos to get a little start going. And like I said, I'll link to my repo, and you can look at the source code. All right. Enjoy. Thanks.